The morning of the fourth day of our tour began with an early breakfast at the Holiday Inn Express. At approximately 8:30 a.m., a bus arrived to pick us up to begin the day of sightseeing. Since I am sitting by the window on the right side of the bus, I will only show what I saw from that side. You see the Church of St. Paul and St. George, an evangelical church of the Scottish Episcopal Church. As we approach George Street, we are greeted by a statue of King George IV. He was considered one of the worst kings Britain ever suffered, and the statue was only erected because he visited Edinburgh in 1822. This was a significant event in Scottish history, as it was the first state visit by a monarch to Scotland in almost 2 centuries. But the street we are driving down is not named after him, but after George III. It was during his reign in the 18th century that much of the new town, including this street, was planned, designed by James Craig, and built. It was the central thoroughfare of Edinburgh's first new town. Some of the grandest of these buildings were designed by the eminent Victorian architect David Bryce, who lived on the street. It was originally planned as a residential area, but later became a commercial hub and is now known for its expensive boutiques, upscale bars and restaurants, while still retaining a Victorian streetscape. The bus turns left and we pass Charlotte Square, designed by Robert Adam. The square is famous for its neoclassical architecture and is considered an important point in the planning of the new town, and is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We are now driving around this square. And we'll drive along North Charlotte Street and Quinn Street. This historic area, with its emphasis on Georgian architecture, also has a rich history. In the 18th century, Scotland experienced a cultural and intellectual revival, and Edinburgh was home to such luminaries as David Hume, Adam Smith, Robert Burns, and Walter Scott. And here is the Victorian Gothic monument to the Scottish writer Sir Walter Scott. It is the largest monument to a writer in the world. It stands in Princes Street, which is where we are now driving. Princes Street is a major thoroughfare in the heart of Edinburgh, serving as the city's main shopping artery and connecting the old and new towns. The street is just over 1 kilometer long and is a popular destination for locals and tourists alike, offering a mix of shops, restaurants, and attractions. We are driving past the Scottish Parliament building. This is a view of the building from the inside. Here our bus turned around and we are driving past the Parliament building again. But now on my side is the Holyrood Palace. These openwork forged gates are closed, but we will see what kind of palace is there from above. The gates are here. The site of the palace complex was originally occupied by the Holyrood Abbey of the Augustinian order, founded in the early 12th century by Scotland King David I. Then since the 15th century, the abbey has been actively used for coronations and weddings of royals. Here from Holyrood Palace, the bus turns onto Canongate Street, which is the lower part of the Royal Mile. Some of the buildings here are over 500 years old, and some have been rebuilt while preserving their historical appearance. There are always many tourists here who come to admire the ancient architecture. This bright yellow building houses the Museum of Edinburgh. And opposite, in front of the Canongate Kirk Church, there is a statue of the Scottish lyric poet Robert Fergusson, who is buried in this church cemetery. The great Scottish economist Adam Smith, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, and other famous Scots are also buried here. Canongate Kirk is also famous for the fact that the Queen came here to pray when she visited Edinburgh. Next to the church is the People's History Museum. The building was built in 1591 and was used by the city administration as a tax office and a prison. We are now driving past these buildings. Canongate has a variety of small independent shops and cafes, including a year-round Christmas shop, so there is something for everyone to enjoy. We are driving along High Street, but it is still the Royal Mile. In a couple of minutes, we will pass by Carrubbers Christian Center. And for those who do not know how services are held in such centers, I will show a short fragment.
Father, help us to use these few years of our lives that we have, Lord. Help us to be influencing the world for Christ, Lord. We really look forward to that.
People of different ages come here, including many young people. It is also a cultural center and a charity organization. Every Sunday they feed free breakfasts to those who need help. Interesting fact, 70 global Christian groups have been identified in more than 500 Christian churches and organizations in Edinburgh. And at the crossroads we are approaching is the ancient 17th century church, Tron Kirk, which now houses a welcoming modern market, bringing together artists and designers from all over Scotland. We are on Chamber Street and driving past the National Museum of Scotland, which is located on both sides of the street and consists of several connected buildings. Now we turn left, and there at the crossroads stands a popular with tourist sculpture of a Skye Terrier named Bobby. According to legend, he sat on the grave of his owner for 14 years. The man worked as a constable, fell ill and died, and the faithful dog sat on his grave until his death. Films and books have been made about this story, and tourists and locals touch the nose of Greyfriars Bobby on the statue, believing that this brings good luck. That's why Bobby's poor nose lost its color. We're back at the crossroads, where we'll now pass the Bedlam Theatre. This is a unique student theater housed in a former 19th century neo-Gothic church. The building is named the Bedlam Theatre after the nearby Edinburgh Psychiatric Institute Bedlam. Sounds a bit funny. Now we'll make a small loop through the streets and return to the Bedlam Theatre. And here it is, but from the other side.
A little bit more.
Soon we arrived at the drop-off point from the bus and got ready for the walking tour. Our guide told us to follow him, and he went ahead. We followed him along the lawn market. Ahead, you can see the Tolbooth Kirk Church, known as the Hub. It was an important municipal building in the city for over 400 years. It was the seat of Parliament and the court, and also a prison where corporal punishment, torture, and even executions were carried out. Now the Hub is used for events related to the Edinburgh International Festival and as a ticket office and information center. There is also a cafe and a restaurant. Meanwhile, we go out onto the esplanade of the castle. Here is where the annual Edinburgh Military Parade takes place. All members of the group have gathered together, and we set off to explore this famous castle.
We're going to cross the bridge.
Above the main entrance, we are greeted by the national motto of Scotland, Nemo me impune licessit, which translates as "No one provokes me with impunity." On either side of the entrance are bronze statues of the fighters for Scottish independence, William Wallace and Robert the Bruce.
So this house built after the year after the siege.
To enter the castle, you need also to go through Portcullis Gate. It's also sometimes referred to as Morton's Gateway. And then we go out to Kraut Square, where the cannons are. I will tell you about them a little later. Now the guide has gathered the group again to tell us about the place where we are. Here is a very short story. Edinburgh Castle stands tall in the city center on the crater of an extinct volcano and has stood as a strong and impenetrable fortress for centuries. During the many wars of Scottish independence, when it was the center of conflict between England and Scotland, and when it was caught up in the Jacobite Rebellion. It also served as a royal residence for many centuries. In the 18th and 19th centuries, The castle also served as a prison, holding prisoners of war from various conflicts including the 7 Years' War and the American Revolutionary War. Today, it is a major tourist attraction and a symbol of Scottish history. Let's take a walk around it and take a closer look at it. To get to the highest part of the castle rock, you need to go through the Fugue Gate. They were made at the end of the 17th century. Why such a name is unknown, but initially these gates were called foggy. This is probably because of the thick fogs that are common in Edinburgh. We pass through the gate and ahead. On the top of the cliff, we can see the chapel of St. Margaret. Let's go in there and see what's inside. King David I built the chapel early in the 12th century and named it after his mother, Queen Margaret, who performed many acts of charity, patronized the church, helped the poor, and promoted trade. For her piety and charitable deeds, Pope Innocent IV canonized Margaret in the 1250. Over the centuries, the chapel had various uses, including as a gunpowder magazine after the Scottish Reformation. It was rediscovered and restored in the 19th century and remains a popular place for visitors today, hosting weddings and christenings. Our group gathered around the guide at Upper Ward to listen to him talk about the surrounding historic buildings.
That's why the castle strategically is
Now we all head to Crown Square, where there are lots of interesting places to see. Look at that narrow passage ahead. I hope no one gets stuck in it. Just kidding. Now everyone is here, and it's time to start exploring the inside of all these buildings. But first, let's take a selfie on the steps of this Scottish National War Memorial. And now let's go inside. This war memorial is dedicated to the Scottish soldiers who died in the 2 world wars and subsequent conflicts. It was officially opened on 14th July 1927 by the Prince of Wales and houses the Roll of Honour, a list of the names of Scottish casualties from these conflicts. The memorial is a place of remembrance and a testament to the sacrifices made by Scottish servicemen. Unfortunately, our time is limited, so we look at all the sites superficially, without delving into the descriptions of the exhibits. But I hope you get an idea of what to expect if you ever come here. The next place we are heading to is the Great Hall. Let's see what's interesting there. As soon as you enter this huge hall, you will immediately notice the exquisite hammer beam roof. It is a masterpiece of medieval carpentry. What do we know about this place? The Great Hall in Queen's Square is a remarkable building, completed in 1511 for King James IV. It served as a grand banqueting hall and a venue for state events during the Scottish Renaissance. Later, it was converted into barracks and then a hospital. Now the Great Hall is a popular tourist attraction, where a collection of weapons and armor is on display. We have walked around this wonderful collection, and now it's time to go to another building and look at the crown jewels. Unfortunately, we weren't able to go inside, but the honors usually open to visitors. The crown jewels of Scotland on display in the King's Hall are the oldest crown jewels in Britain. Made from gold, silver, and precious stones, the priceless crown, scepter, and sword of state are items of immense significance. The crown was made for James V, who first wore it at the coronation of Queen Mary of Guise in 1540. The crown jewels have been used at state occasions, including George IV's visit in 1822, Elizabeth II's first visit to Scotland as monarch in 1953, and the National Service of Thanksgiving for Charles III in 2023. The honors, the crown jewels, are present at every state opening of the Scottish Parliament.
Royal Company, recover, wait!
Now we move in this direction. We pass under the arch and make a stop in a very necessary place, near the restroom or toilet. People are coming out of there now. I think you will also be interested to see what the toilet looks like in such a castle. At this eastern end of the upper ward is Fore Well, which was a vital source of water for the castle, especially during sieges. It is a deep well, partly carved into the rock and widened with dressed stone. Fore Well is thought to be one of the oldest structures in the castle, dating back around 700 years. The Half Moon Battery is also located here. This is a crescent-shaped gun platform that originally housed the castle's main guns. Today, it houses cannons from the Napoleonic Wars.
You want to get in? We'll shoot you out. It's like in the circus.
Opa. Is it possible to show it through to see? Oh.
One other cannon worth mentioning is Mons Meg, which was once considered the cutting edge of military technology. Gifted to King James II in 1457, the 6-ton Nizhige gun could fire a 330-pound stone up to 2 miles. Wow! It could even fit a child in its muzzle. And there's the clock gun. It's a daily time signal that goes off at 1 a.m. and was introduced in 1861. It was originally introduced to help ships in the Firth of Forth set their chronometers. It's now a popular tourist attraction and a much-loved part of Edinburgh's daily rhythm. I am coming to you to continue the story and show you the magnificent panorama of the city that opens up from this height. There are a couple more interesting places to see in the castle, and we go down to the lower level through the already familiar Fugue Gate. Now we are going to visit the military prison. It is located in the cellars under the Great Hall. During various conflicts, including the 7 Years' War, the American Revolutionary War, and the Napoleonic Wars, prisoners of war from countries such as France, America, Spain, and the Netherlands were held in these cellars. The castle also served as a military prison for the garrison, for which a special detention block was built in 1842. For added effect, recorded voices of prisoners are played in the prison cells.
Maintenant, je me suis mis au chapeau et au meuble.
Voilà un commerce qui doit être prospère.
Ouais, mais ils retiennent un petit pourcentage en échange de l'utilisation des terrasses pour les ateliers.
Ah, ma foi, rien ne se fait tout à fait librement.
Et nous ne sommes pas tout à fait libres.
This is definitely a gloomy place. It is better not to end up in such a place. I'd rather go to the soldier in a kilt. Actually, the correct name for the traditional national dress of Scottish soldiers is Highland clothing, and the soldiers are called Highland soldiers. Of course, you need to take a selfie with such a soldier, which is what I did. The military museum has a lot of weapons, uniforms, paintings, and awards. This concludes the tour of the castle. We return to the bus. Some of the group will go to explore the city further, since what I showed you is a small part of Edinburgh. Some members of the group returned to the hotel and then walked around near our hotel. I teamed up with Jack for such a walk.
Wellington.
You beat Napoleon.
Here at Conan Doyle's for lunch today.
Oh, wow.
We finished this evening in a nice bar. Which is what I am talking about in Russian.
No, what? Leave, buddy.
This is where I finish the story about the fourth day of the tour.